We're back in Las Vegas. This is tnoozLIVE at Arival, presented by Rezdy. I'm so excited that I get to interview all of these tour suppliers and people who are doing these great things because it's making me want to go more places. So we're here to talk about expert-driven tours. So go ahead and introduce yourself real quick, and then we'll get started.
Sure. I'm Paul Bennett, and I run a small company called Context Travel. And we do walking tours for the intellectually curious. So they're small group, private, or 6-person group tours that are led by a local expert. So you can imagine if you're in Rome and you go to the Colosseum with us, we'll get an archaeologist to take you there. Or in Beijing and you want to go to the Forbidden City, we'll get a sinologist or a chef or an architect, somebody who lives there and is local, but also has studied that topic, probably teaches it, probably wrote books about it. So real expertise to dive deep into the topic and transform people through that travel experience.
So if you really want to geek out into a particular topic while you're in a town, that's the place to go.
Yeah, we're tours for nerds, basically.
Straight up.
Yeah,
I like
people,
that. Is that your slogan? That's a great slogan. I mean, you know, nerds and geeks, it's the thing now, right? We're good. Everything is fine, you know?
Yeah, well, for people, we talk about...
I like intellectual curious. It's a little more formal.
It's a little more refined. Yeah. But when we talk to our customers about like who they are and what they like, they self-identify as continuous learners, right? So on the weekends, they're not just sort of sitting in front of the tube, you know, they're reading books, they're going to museums. When they travel, they want to like dig deep into the place. They also want to have fun. They want to drink some wine. They want to have some food, but they also want to be a little deeper than just kind of checking things off the box.
So does that mean you also get some locals on the tours? You know, the people may realize that, you know, it's in my hometown and there's something else happening, or does that happen?
It happens.
I always feel like I should go on more tours, like when I'm in my city.
But so it happens in the U.S. and in the U.K. Our tours are English language-based tours. So we get Londoners going on London tours. We get New Yorkers going on New Yorker tours. But mostly it's visitors who are coming in from out of town.
So with your product is a little different than the kind of a standard tour. We're going to go to the Niagara Falls or something like that. You have to find an expert. We'll actually pick a topic, find an expert who can actually deliver, and make sure that expert is knowledgeable but not boring, right? That's probably tough. So it sounds like, and knowledgeable but not boring is hard. I mean, I think it's I know a lot of smart people that are pretty damn boring, but they're smart, so you like to hang out with them, right? So how do you do that? Like, this seems like a special problem that you guys might have than other tour suppliers, maybe not so much.
Yeah, I mean, we have a pretty not extreme vetting, but we vet the docents who lead our tours. It's pretty easy to find people with expertise. It's on their CV. We can sort of see on their CV, okay, you've wrote a book on it or you have a PhD in the topic. Then we sit down and we talk to them. And if they can articulate a vision, if they can craft a narrative in a conversation, then that's a pretty good indicator. And then we start putting them out on tours. They shadow some walks with us. We do some mystery shopping. We rely a lot on feedback, and we focus in on crafting narratives. So you either have it or you don't. I mean, where did you go to university?
I went to Duke in North Carolina.
Okay, so probably at Duke, you had some classes, probably small seminar level classes, where the professor was just inspiring. She came in, she created a narrative experience. You were like, oh, this is awesome. Then you probably also had some classes, maybe lecture classes, where it was just the professor going on and on. You had to kind of jolt yourself awake, right? We're expert at figuring that out, and we look for the former. Sort of think of our docents sometimes as New Yorker writers, somebody who can take a topic that in itself is interesting, but make it even more interesting and transformative for somebody through that narrative art.
So they may actually discover that they went on the tour, but it's actually they're more interested in the topic afterwards. Almost like that they really got triggered to do that. That's great. How do you grow? So if are you identifying topics first, or do sometimes experts just approach you and say, hey, this sounds awesome. I went on a tour. Walk me through the process. I've been asking a lot of suppliers about how they create these new tours, which I think is an interesting topic.
Yeah, we do a little bit of both. So we think a lot about the community of our docents. We were impressed with what Chip Conley did at Airbnb, where he sort of brought this disparate group of hosts together and made them kind of a hospitality company. So we sort of try to apply similar concepts to our docents. They're not just freelancers. We get together with them, we talk to them, we have events, we do training, we do learning. And so through that, building that community, we derive a lot of content, a lot of ideas from them. Now, some of those ideas are extremely esoteric and will never sell. So then we kind of put a gloss of, is there market demand for this? We do surveys in the market, we look at competitors, we do some analysis, and we look for sort of white areas where we think we can develop a product that's come out of our docent community that there's some space for. And then we do the opposite, where we actually just look at the marketplace and we start to think internally. We have a staff of about 20 people who are constantly looking at the market and saying, hey, is there something here that the intellectually curious traveler is really interested in that isn't being served or isn't being served well? And then we'll go back to our docent community and say, hey guys, we need to come up with a tour around this topic. What do you think? And then we'll bang it together with them and build something.
Does that maybe also include certain coverages, like, in a magazine, like an Architectural Digest, like picks up some story about an artist? Or, I mean, is it just kind of everyone is just aware of what is happening in a particular community too,
Well,
to find these gems, I guess?
Some of it's topical, right? So we will develop tours around an event. Like we did a tour a number of years ago around the Greek financial crisis. And so
That sounds sad, but maybe interesting for some.
It was sad, but it was very interesting, right? It was in the headlines, right. And so we had people coming into Athens, and that was their number one question. Especially, people from the coast or in the financial industries were like, yeah, I want to visit the Acropolis, I want to visit the Archaeological Museum, but also I'd love to meet an economist locally or a banker and ask some questions about like what is it on what's going on the ground and what's happening sort of politically and socially around the crisis. So we found a great financial writer in Athens to lead this tour, and we walked through, and it was pretty great.
Fantastic.
We do a similar tour in Paris on immigration and the changing face of France. And we do something similar in Berlin as well. That's tied to the Syrian refugee crisis. So there's sometimes there's topical stuff.
So it's not just I'm a chef and I'm going to show you where to eat. I mean, this is also stuff that really is relevant to people's lives in the day.
Although we do plenty of food.
I'm
Food's
sure you
a
do.
huge,
Not everybody wants to have
vertical
a Syrian
for us.
refugee experience.
Yeah.
Learn about that.
Actually, our Syrian refugee experience is a cooking class with a Syrian refugee. So yeah, it's dynamite.
I spoke with someone who had a culinary tour company. I'm sure that be really popular. You get to know both sides of that.
Yeah.
Learn a lot through food.
Yeah, food's a great lens for understanding culture.
Yeah,
that's our view on it.
Let's talk about marketing a little bit. What's the marketing approach? It seems like you have a pretty unique and actually probably really, easy in some ways, brand value proposition, because you're not, competing against a large set of people. But how do you find these intellectual curious folks, on one hand, new ones, and then how are you re-engaging the people that might have already gone on one of your experiences?
Yeah, so we're a small company and we don't have a big marketing budget. And traditionally, we've just been relying a lot on word of mouth, so the strength of the product. We've now matured to a point where we need to invest in marketing, so we brought on some investment recently, and we're going to be spending a lot of that money on building out technology and digital marketing capabilities. We have a very sort of concise and sharp view on our customer. We know her really well, we know her persona and her likes, and we have a very small slice of that market right now. We think there's a large and growing intellectually curious demographic out there. So we get to her through Facebook ads and even AdWords, SEO, automated marketing. The whole suite of finding exactly the right consumer and then bringing her in. We do a little bit of distribution as well. So we play with the Viators and the Expedias of the world. It's not a big part of our business. It's mostly direct.
It's mostly direct business, yeah. So obviously with the Facebook ads, you have the demographic targeting that you're doing, and then you can also see the demographics of people who actually interacted. Do you find that it's a very similar band across all the intellectually curious, or does the kind of each tour category of, say, the more political ones and then the culinary ones are completely different, or do you kind of find that the intellectually curious folks are a certain stripe, I guess, that are interested in multiple types of tours?
I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, it really depends on the content, right? So, I consider myself intellectually curious, and some days I'm spending a lot of time thinking about politics. I mean, a little too much these days, in fact. But so we can get to them through that, but the content has to be about that. So, for example, the Syrian refugee cooking class that we do in Berlin, we can talk to people about that content through that interest. But then we also talk to people, people who read Lapham's Quarterly, right? So they're thinking about sort of museums and more intellectual pursuits, going to monuments. So we'll talk to them a little about some tweetier topics, some nerdier topics. So it kind of is matching that content to the psychographic, really, rather than the demographic of the consumer at the right time. That's the secret sauce.
It's fascinating. It's kind of fun.
Yeah.
That the kind of stuff is fun to me.
Oh, no, it's great.
It's like putting the round peg in the round hole. You're just kind of like, yes, they work.
Yes.
They like each other. You know. So looking ahead, so you're how many years again? It was 12. Wait, no, I did the math wrong.
I'm not a maths guy, so about 14 years.
15
okay,
15
yeah,
I thought
years.
it was up there. So that's a long time. Still pretty small, but you know, successful. This is a good level, or do you guys have the ambitions to kind of keep adding destinations? And walk me through the next 2 or 3 years in your view.
We're going through a transition right now where up until this point we've been growing organically. I've owned the business outright myself, my wife and I. We just took on investors and so co-owners in the business. And we have a vision to grow the business significantly in the next 3 to 4 years.
Yeah, it's like we were just talking about. You know, it's if you own the business yourself, it's organic growth, and there's advantages, right? You can own it all, but growth is harder. You know, and you have to take on it on. So
yeah, we're sort of growing up.
So it's good, right? And sometimes I don't know. So with these investors, what is the goal? Is it a number of destinations, number of experiences? How do you benchmark your success?
Yeah, all of it. But the main focus right now is there's a lot of low-hanging fruit in front of us. Like I said before, there's this intellectually curious traveler out there. We're talking to a few of them, but we think we can put our brand out in front of her and capture that a lot more of those customers. So mostly it's vertical growth, just putting more people on tours, running more tours every day. But then there's expansion as well. So we're currently in 43 cities worldwide. We'll roll out another 10 to 15 in the next 18 months and then continue that kind of aggressive expansion model for the next 4 or 5 years.
Seems like that loyalty piece will become more and more important because it's just that's the kind of thing I like to do, and I just keep traveling. Do you get people just travel just to do your tour? That's the reason why they go?
We have a really high net promoter score, so our customers, we have a sort of cult-like following. Once somebody comes in, if it's the right fit for them, we found the right customer, she falls in love with us. So we hear people say all the time, I actually won't go someplace unless context is there. And so they'll send us notes like, I'm going to we opened in Buenos Aires because one of our loyal customers said, I'm going to Buenos Aires next year. I really want to do a context tour while I'm there. And so we quickly sort of rolled it out and got some scholars there and created a program.
That's some customer service right there.
Yeah.
We're not there, but we will be just for you because you're loyal.
We'll spin it right up for you.
But that's kind of awesome. I mean, that probably engenders more loyalty, and then you can tell that story, and it becomes something that people respect and want more of.
Yeah, the key to our business is having that sort of consumer focus and constantly thinking about who's the right fit for our brand and just listening to her.
That's fantastic.
Following the data.
Well, best of luck with that growth.
Great.
That's amazing. I think next time I'm going to have to go on one. I'm super intellectually geeky, so I'd go right into that. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
And we are
Thanks for
live
having me.
in Las Vegas, and we'll be right back.